Hello and welcome back to another Dare to Game video. Today I decided I want to recap the story of Kingdom Come Deliverance in a way that would make it possible for anyone who has not played the game, or maybe just not for a long time, to fully understand the story and characters of this game before the release of KCD2. Now of course my recommendation would be to just play the first game, as it is excellent, but I also understand that time is short, so I hope this video helps. Also, and I feel like I shouldn't have to say this, but this video will obviously contain story spoilers for Kingdom Come Deliverance, so only watch if you want that. Chapter 1, Unexpected Visit. In the year 1403, amidst the turmoil caused by King Sigismund of Luxembourg's aggression in Bohemia, Henry, a young blacksmith's son, wakes in the silver mining town of Skalitz. His father, a skilled smith named Martin, has been tasked with forging a splendid longsword for Sir Radzig Kobyla, the local lord. Henry spends the morning running errands for his father and playfully bantering with his sweetheart, Bianca. But the peaceful day is overshadowed by talk of political unrest in Prague and rumors of Sigismund's mercenary forces ravaging the countryside. Henry's parents encourage him to focus on learning the trade, but he chafes at the idea, dreaming of life beyond the forge. By day's end, he helps Martin complete the sword, unaware that these ordinary tasks will soon be eclipsed by unimaginable violence. Chapter 2, Run. No sooner does Henry's family finish the sword than Skalitz is attacked by Sigismund's forces, which include heavily armed Cumans and knights under the command of the ruthless Markvart von Aulitz. Buildings burn and townsfolk are cut down where they stand. Henry rushes to find his parents, but the castle gates slam shut before he can reach the safety of the walls. He is forced to watch powerless, as von Aulitz's men kill Henry's mother and von Aulitz himself kills Martin. Wounded and driven by his father's final plea to warn others, Henry flees on horseback to Talmberg. Barely alive, he arrives to beg Sir Divish, the lord of Talmberg, to prepare for war. Sir Radzig, who escaped Skalitz in the night, passes Talmberg on his way to Retaking with the survivors from Skalitz. He commands Henry to stay there. Chapter 3, Homecoming. Though Sir Divish and Sir Radzig both forbid Henry from returning to Skalitz, his grief over leaving his parents' bodies unburied grows unbearable. Slipping away from the guards in Talmberg, Henry treks back to his ruined hometown. Skalitz is now a smoldering husk full of looters and wild animals. With solemn determination, Henry fends off scavengers to reach the corpses of Martin and his mother. In a final act of filial duty, he digs the graves under the linden tree by the forge and tries to lay them to rest. Exhausted, Henry is then ambushed by bandits led by a hulking figure known as Runt, who strikes Henry down. At the last moment, soldiers from Talmberg, alerted by Teresa, the local miller's daughter, arrive, driving the bandits away and saving Henry's life. Chapter 4, Awakening. Henry drifts in and out of feverish dreams for days at the mill in Retaking, owned by Teresa's uncle Peshek. Teresa herself, who barely escaped the massacre in Skalitz, has tended his wounds alongside Peshek. When Henry finally awakens, he learns that his rescuers have racked up substantial costs caring for him. Shaken by nightmares of slaughter, he clings to the memory of his parents and the knowledge that he owes a debt of gratitude and coin to Teresa and her uncle Peshek. Despite having lost her home, Teresa remains a source of comfort. Henry begins helping around the mill, determined to regain his strength and to do right by those who saved him. Chapter 5, Train Hard, Fight Easy. Word of Henry's survival reaches Sir Radzig, who summons him to Retay's lower castle. Impressed by Henry's spirit and aware that the young man has nowhere else to go, Sir Radzig takes him into his service. However, Henry's first real test is training under Captain Bernard, an uncompromising veteran soldier tasked with whipping new recruits into shape in Retaking. In the practice yard, Henry struggles to wield a sword as skillfully as he once forged one, but Bernard's relentless drilling pushes him towards competency. During these sessions, Henry has another interaction with a nobleman, Sir Hans Capon, who taunts him and starts their relationship in an inauspicious manner. Chapter 6, Keeping the Peace. To further prove himself, Henry is assigned to assist the bailiff of Retaking in maintaining order. He joins Nightingale, an experienced watchman patrolling the winding streets and settling minor quarrels. While the day-to-day tasks of enforcing the law can feel mundane, Henry learns that real combat is not the only challenge facing a soldier. Retaking seethes with tensions between refugees from Skalitz and long-term residents, and Henry's empathy for those displaced people sharpens his resolve to protect the weak. Gradually, his sense of duty expands beyond more personal revenge, and he begins to appreciate the broader responsibilities that come with serving a lord. His last task for the day is shutting the town down. He attempts to shut down a tavern where the young Sir Hans Capon is partying, and a fight ensues between the two. Hanish breaks up the fight, and as punishment, Henry must accompany Hans on his hunting trip the following day. Chapter 7, The Prey. The next morning, Henry has to go hunting with Sir Hans Capon, and although Sir Hans seems to be an arrogant dandy, Henry Henry soon realizes there's more to the young noble. When humans ambush them during a failed boar hunt, Henry bravely fights them off and saves Sir Hans's life, forging a reluctant respect between them. Hans, recognizing Henry's courage, begins treating him less like a servant and more like a companion, a shift that proves significant in their trials ahead. Chapter 8, The Hunt Begins. After saving Hans's life, Henry is rewarded with his first horse, Pebbles, by Sir Hanish of Lipa, and word arrives that the Neuhoff stud farm has been brutally raided, leaving horses slaughtered and innocent people dead. Sir Radzig dispatches Henry along with Captain Bernard and a few men-at-arms to investigate. Henry scours the grisly scene, speaking to traumatized survivors and searching for any clue that might identify the attackers. The evidence suggests that this is not a simple act of banditry, but part of a larger, more coordinated effort. Among the carnage, Henry finds tracks leading away from Neuhoff and discovers that at least one stable hand may have fled in a hurry. Chapter 9, Ginger in a Pickle. Suspicion quickly falls on Ginger, a timid stable boy who disappeared following the raid. Some of Neuhoff believe he might have led the bandits to the farm. Henry traces Ginger into the deep woods, where the frightened boy reluctantly admits he recognized one of the attackers, an individual with a pronounced limp. Ginger insists he had no role in the massacre and fled only out of fear that the bandits would silence him if they learned he could identify them. Henry, seeing Ginger's terror, believes him and promises to find the limping bandit in the settlement of Ujits. Chapter 10, Mysterious Ways. Guided by Ginger's clue, Henry travels to Ujits, searching for anyone matching the description of a limping raider. Ujits is a small and insular town, and Henry must carefully interview villagers, innkeepers, and the priest to tease out gossip about strangers. Each conversation reveals more of Bohemia's precarious state, local folk worrying about roving mercenaries, while feuds fester between the impoverished peasants and the wealthier townspeople. Eventually, Henry discovers that the limping man is indeed involved in a broader gang operating in the region. Though the details remain fuzzy, the trail begins to illuminate a network of criminals tied to the attack on Neuhoff. Chapter 11, On the Scent. Information from Ujits, obtained from Father Godwin, the local priest, leads Henry to a man known as Riki, rumored to be part of the Neuhoff raiding party. Riki's name alone conjures the image of a reclusive, dubious character, and indeed Henry finds him hiding in a damp cave near Ledechko, fearful for his life. Riki confesses that multiple bandit groups are mobilizing under the command of a more dangerous leader, an individual with resources and influence far beyond that of petty thieves. Terrified of being hunted down, Riki yields only what he must to Henry, praying for mercy. Though the details remain murky, Henry senses that something larger is taking shape, with implications that stretch far beyond a single raid. Chapter 12, My Friend Timmy. Riki directs Henry to a simple-minded fellow named Timmy, holed up in a windmill south of Merhoyed. Timmy is petrified of both the law and the bandits, for he unwittingly became entangled in their plot. Persuading Timmy to speak requires Henry to balance compassion and determination, reassuring him that he won't be executed for accidentally aiding the criminals. Finally, Timmy divulges that the main bandit camp responsible for the Neuhoff attack lies in the heavily forested area near an abandoned village called Pribyslavitz. This location is said to be teeming with cutthroats under the command of a vicious bandit leader known only by his nickname, Runt. Chapter 13, Nest of Vipers. Upon receiving this news, Sir Radzig orders Henry to infiltrate the camp at Pribyslavitz to confirm Timmy's story and assess the bandits' strength. Henry sneaks through the overgrown ruins, counting archers, noting where supplies are stored, and identifying the best spots for sabotage. The camp is vast, bristling with mercenaries, both Bohemian brigands and Hungarian cumans, who answer to Runt. Henry narrowly avoids capture, managing to poison the bandits' food and set fire to their arrows before fleeing under the cover of darkness. Armed with new intelligence, he hurries back to Retaking to prepare the lords for a decisive strike. Chapter 14, Baptism of Fire. With Captain Robard leading a raiding party from Talmberg and Sir Divish marching forth with Henry and his men, the attack is ferocious. Henry, in the first true battle for him, fights alongside seasoned soldiers as arrows rain down and the clash of steel echoes through the trees. Amid the chaos, Henry comes face to face with Runt, the very man who led the ambush that nearly killed him in Skalitz. They battle in the half-ruined church, locked in a personal duel fueled by hatred and vengeance. Henry prevails, striking Runt down in a brutal sword fight. Though the bandits are routed and Pribyslavitz reclaimed, the victory is bittersweet. Many brave men have fallen, and Henry learns that this is but one arm of a far-reaching conspiracy. Chapter 15, Questions and Answers. While Henry and his allies fought in Pribyslavitz, another gang of marauders attacked the village of Merhoyed, only to be repelled by its determined inhabitants. Remarkably, the villagers managed to capture a wounded bandit. Sir Radzig tasks Henry with interrogating the prisoner, believing he might lead them higher up the chain of command. On arriving in Merhoyed, Henry discovers an outbreak of a mysterious illness ravaging the people. Desperate to keep the prisoner alive long enough to talk, Henry scours the region for herbs and consults a local healer healer, Johanka, and brother Nicodemus from the Monastery in Sasau, ultimately brewing an antidote to save as many as possible. The bandit eventually reveals that they are all working under the auspices of a man named Istvan Toth, though the details remain vague. After learning this, Henry arrests the prisoner, transports him to Retaking, and moves on with his investigation. Chapter 16, All That Glisters. Amid the loot recovered from Pribyslavitz, Sir Radzig and Master Fafar examine a large trove of groschen that appear legitimate, but are in fact counterfeit. This discovery is alarming, as forging currency is high treason against King Wenceslaus IV. Henry is sent to Sasau to investigate suspicious goings-ons in the mines of Skalitz and the monastery's foundry in Sasau, where the silver is being processed. He uncovers evidence of organized counterfeit production, orchestrated by well-placed individuals who leverage Sasau's industry. Each conversation and clue further points to Istvan Toth's involvement, suggesting he's financing mercenaries and forging coins in a bid to undermine the royal economy. Chapter 17, If You Can't Beat 'Em. In Sasau, rumors abound of crimps, who recruit men for a new bandit army. Henry, instructed by Sir Radzig, attempts to go undercover to learn more about the recruiters and where they send their recruits. Feigning interest in joining, he weaves through taverns, back alleys, and clandestine meetings. It becomes a dangerous game of bluffing hardened criminals, as any slip-up could mean a swift death. Yet Henry manages to learn that the bandit network extends well beyond Pribyslavitz, with entire bands funneling fresh blood into hidden training camps. The deeper Henry digs, the clearer it becomes that Istvan Toth is orchestrating a coup of sorts within this region of Bohemia. Chapter 18, Poverty, Chastity, and Obedience. A crucial lead takes Henry to the Sasau Monastery. One of the novices there, an undercover bandit or conspirator, must be tracked down and dealt with so Henry can join the crimps. Realizing he cannot simply barge in wearing armor, Henry arranges to switch places with a young noble, Sir Karl, who is set to enter the monastery to fulfill a vow. By taking Sir Karl's place, Henry gains legitimate entry to the tightly controlled monastic life. He surrenders his weapons, dons the monk's robes, and prepares to ferret out the conspirator who has sought refuge behind holy walls to prove his loyalty to the crimps. Chapter 19, A Needle in a Haystack. Within the monastery, Henry becomes Brother Gregor. Days blur into prayer, work in the scriptorium, strict silence, and devout ceremonies. All the while, he keeps a watchful eye on the other novices, listening for inconsistencies in their stories. Cloistered away from the world outside, Henry must carefully gather clues to identify the hidden bandit. One mistake could blow his cover and ruin his entire plan. With patience, he zeroes in on the hidden bandit, identifies him through one of various ways, and either kills him or helps him fake his death. Chapter 20, The Die is Cast. Having eliminated the bandit hiding as a monk, Henry leaves the monastery and heads to a swamp nearby to wait for the crimps, who, impressed with his successful mission in the monastery, invite him to join them. From the crimps, Henry gains a final decisive piece of evidence. Istvan Toth is gathering his forces at a fortification called Vranik. Sir Radzig sends Henry to scout Vranik to determine the forces, fortifications, numbers, and if possible their plan. Henry is captured and tortured by Istvan Toth and his lieutenant Eric. Henry escapes with the help of Zabishek, another survivor from Skalitz, who had joined up with the bandits and had since come to regret that decision. The two make their way to Retaking, where Henry informs Radzig of the entire situation. Chapter 21, Payback. Bolstered by Sir Hanush, Sir Divish, and some other nobles like Captain Bernard and Sir Robard, who heeded Sir Radzig's call, Henry marches on Vranik. The fortress is formidable, guarded by hardened mercenaries. A pitched battle ensues, and after fierce fighting, the allied knights and men-at-arms manage to break through the gates. Inside, Henry confronts the reality that Istvan Toth is no mere bandit leader. He is well-connected, cunning, and aligned with powerful allies who seek to destabilize the region. Though Vranik falls, Henry learns that Istvan himself slipped away before the battle. Bound for Talmberg, the news is dire. Talmberg has been left woefully under-defended in the rush to take Vranik. Chapter 22, Out of the Frying Pan. Istvan Toth seizes Talmberg Castle through a ruse pretending to be injured men, and being let inside where they capture Lady Stephanie, Sir Divish's wife, and take the castle hostage, getting the remainder of Istvan Toth's men inside. In the mad rush back to Talmberg, Sir Radzig manages to cross the drawbridge before it is closed in an attempt to stop Istvan and save Lady Stephanie, but Sir Radzig is overwhelmed and taken hostage. Now, Istvan holds 2 noble captives, several castle staff, and has secured the castle for himself. Chapter 23, Night Raid. Knowing that a direct assault on the castle's walls will be costly and will likely fail, the nobles hatch a plan for a stealth mission. A small group, including Henry and Sir Hans, will scale the castle walls under the cover of darkness to rescue Lady Stephanie and Sir Radzig. Slipping past guards and creeping through torchlit corridors, Henry's party locates some hostages but cannot locate Sir Radzig or Lady Stephanie, who are being held deeper within the castle. However, the alarm is somehow sounded, and and in the rush to escape, Sir Hans is shot in the ass with an arrow, but Henry manages to help him escape the walls back to the relative safety of the siege camp. Chapter 24, Siege. Realizing a swift victory is now impossible, the Allied forces establish a siege camp around Talmberg. Setting up palisades, tents, and workshops, Henry coordinates with Sir Robard and Sir Hanush to gather supplies, recruit more soldiers, and commission a trebuchet to breach the walls. This grueling period tests Henry's leadership, as he must convince the engineer to join them, and he must negotiate the delivery of the supplies they need. As the weeks drag on, the thunder of carpenters building the trebuchet underscores the inevitability of a bloody confrontation if Istvan will not negotiate. Chapter 25, Cold Steel, Hot Blood. An urgent message arrives. Istvan has called in reinforcements of his own from a nearby lord, Sir Havelmedic of Valdek, and they are mere hours away. Henry leaves the camp with a detachment of men under the command of Sir Robard. They ambush the reinforcements on the road and defeat them before hearing that the siege camp was also being assaulted. Chapter 26, Family Values. Henry and his allies race back to the siege camp to find it under attack by Toth's allies, attempting to destroy the trebuchet. Leading the defense, Henry fights tooth and nail to protect the trebuchet. Sir Hans, still recovering from his injury, fights alongside Henry and the other men-at-arms to defend the trebuchet and successfully defeat and capture Eric, Istvan Toth's lieutenant who had led the attack on the trebuchet. With the attack defeated, Henry interrogates Eric, learning more about Istvan Toth and realizing that they could use Eric as a bargaining chip. Chapter 27, An Oath is an Oath. With the trebuchet finally ready, the allied nobles send Toth an ultimatum: release the hostages and surrender Talmberg, or face bombardment. Istvan refuses. They also offer Eric in exchange for Lady Stephanie and Sir Radzig, but Istvan refuses, knowing that the hostages were all that stood between him and death. At dawn, the Great War Machine lobs massive stones at the castle walls, shaking Talmberg to its foundations. When a breach opens, Henry and the nobles lead the final assault. Swords clash in the smoky ruins of the courtyard as Toth's men mount a desperate defense. During the chaos, Henry fights his way to the highest tower, hoping to find Lady Stephanie and Sir Radzig alive. Istvan, however, has one last bargaining chip. He threatens to kill both Lady Stephanie and Radzig unless he's allowed to walk free. Chapter 28, Vengeance. In a tense standoff, Istvan Toth holds a blade to Lady Stephanie's throat and warns Henry that Sir Radzig is also in mortal danger. The besiegers have little choice but to negotiate. Henry, Sir Divish, and Sir Hanush reluctantly allow Istvan to depart in exchange for Lady Stephanie's freedom and the eventual safe return of Sir Radzig Kobyla. Although Talmberg is liberated, Henry's triumph is marred by fury at seeing the culprit behind so many atrocities walk away. In the aftermath, Sir Divish and Lady Stephanie share an emotional reunion, and Sir Radzig, wounded but alive, quietly acknowledges Henry as more than just a faithful retainer. He is in truth his son. Istvan Toth escapes with Henry's sword as Sir Radzig and Henry ride back to Retaking. Chapter 29, Epilogue. With Istvan Toth gone and his mercenary army scattered, Henry and the nobles are visited by Jobst of Moravia, a very important noble and cousin to King Wenceslaus IV, who is attempting to secure an alliance of nobles to resist Sigismund. Henry and Hans are tasked with delivering a letter to a nearby important noble named Otto von Burgau at Trotsky Castle. The game ends with Sir Hans Kapan, Henry, and a small retinue riding off toward Trotsky Castle. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you liked this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.